Hey, welcome back. I wanted to talk to you today about the monkey on your back, or overthinkers.com as some of us refer to it. The idea that everything that happens, you put yourself in the center of it. You think about it too much, you blame yourself too much, and you wonder whether there was anything that you could have done better, smarter, wiser, or more considered. And the reason I wanted to bring this subject up today is whether you're talking about the way you're treating your kids and the way your kids are treating you, or how your dynamics with your ex-spouse are going, or how you're dealing with co-workers, or how you're dealing with the world around you at large. If you're overthinking things, you're not giving yourself the benefit of the doubt. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this subject today was I recently watched a video by Brian Rose from London Real. Now, I've got a lot of time for Brian, and I think he's done some fantastic interviews. I don't necessarily agree with some of the more recent directions that he's taken London Real in, but anyway, he's a good bloke who works hard, and he'd released this new film. I think it's called Reconnect, and the idea was that he was burning out, he was putting a lot of work in, he was spending not so much time with his family, and it was really causing him a lot of emotional grief. So he decides, through a contact friend of his, to go to South America and experience an ayahuasca ceremony, which is basically a psychedelic plant-induced trance that's supposed to reveal all sorts of deep spiritual issues and help you overcome some of them. So anyway, he goes through ayahuasca, and it gives him a few lessons to learn. One is that he needs to spend more time with the people that are important to him. I don't think you need to smoke drugs to figure that one out. And that's supposed to influence his whole career. So he goes back, and for a while things seem different. He starts wearing flowery shirts to work, and his workers start seeing him a bit more chilled and relaxed. But slowly and surely, he gets all excited about work again, and he's got big plans and big visions. And it gets to a point where he even admits that he goes away with his family on holiday, but he can't help himself. He has to leave early, even missing his son's birthday party, to the great frustration and annoyance of his wife and obviously his kids. So he finds himself swamped and drowning again, and overthinking, as he probably did. He starts to think about his childhood, and he thinks about how competitive he is and how that's more than likely a compensation for not having enough love when his parents had a divorce as when he was a young boy. So, having been told by other guests of his show that he's overcompensating, being a perfectionist and over-competitive. Dan Pena, for example, the billionaire castle-owning guru, looked him in the face and told him that that's exactly what he was doing. And other psychologists told him the same thing. So what he decided to do as part of this movie was to go and visit both of his parents to try and come to terms with his feelings as a boy and interview his parents to see if he could somehow tie up those loose ends and make himself feel a bit better in the process. Maybe finalize those issues. So he visits his mother, and his mother seems fairly blasé about the whole thing and nods her head and says, yes, it was a hard time, and yes, we went through some difficult times, and took him to Europe, and she thinks that was a very positive thing for him because it exposed him to a lot of new ideas. And so she basically put everything in a positive light. Anyway, then he visits his father, and his father was a really interesting one, because as he's interviewing his father about the divorce, his father puts on what could only be described as a poker face. And Brian's sitting opposite him, and he's almost in tears, outlining all his feelings and how it's all affected him and how his whole future and adult life has been somehow traumatized and adversely colored by the events of this obviously traumatic divorce for him. And his father makes basically a shovel over the shoulder motion and tells him that he just doesn't think about it. It's been and gone. Just get over it and move on. And it's one of these really interesting things. His father doesn't carry a monkey on his back, but Brian Rose obviously did. That monkey that keeps poking and prodding and saying, what about this and what about that? And it never lets you go, and it keeps reminding you there's something else you need to be thinking about. When really what you need to focus on is where you're going, not what's behind you, what's caused your history and your grief, but where you're going into the future. So whether it's your kids and whether you've been the best dad you can be and why your kids aren't turning out the way you wanted them to turn out, it's not under your control. You know, one of the fundamental tenets of Stoicism is that there are things that are external and then there are things that are internal. You cannot control external factors, but you can control your internal response to them. So you can do your best to be the best dad you can be. You can do your best to be the most honourable ex-spouse you can be. You can do your best to be the best businessman, to be the best kind-hearted neighbour. But at the end of the day, the way people treat you is about them, not about you. You need to stop thinking about what you might have done wrong and what you should do better, and just think about where you are now. Are you doing the best you can? And make a little bit of an improvement every day in those things that you think you could do better. Stop worrying about what's happened in the past, and stop worrying about how your children are behaving, what's going to happen in the future. All those things are out of your hands. So when I looked at Brian Rose's film, the whole thing ended really unresolved. At the end of the film, he was back making great plans, having conferences. His family was sitting there with him, but he didn't show any snippets of more holidays. He didn't show much more in terms of him spending time with his kids, a few little ringa-ringa-rosies, but really he was at work every bit as much as he was before. And the way things are going now for London Real, it looks like he's right up to his neck in it. So these are the monkeys on our back that don't actually make any difference to the quality of our life. You need to just do the best you can do and move on from there, and let other people do the best they can do. Stop holding yourself accountable and responsible for the actions of other people. Hold yourself accountable for your own actions, and you'll find that each day will bring its own fresh challenges. And as long as you don't carry a monkey on your back, you won't be weighed down by overthinking. So until next time, remember to walk tall. Cheers.